Welcome back, everybody, to the Coffee and Grace podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm here with my very special friend and guest, Mrs. Molly Botta. Hi, Molly. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us. So today we're going to be talking with Molly. Like I said, we've been Facebook friends for a long time. We were secret sisters a few years back, and that was really fun to do together. And she's so gracious to share her story today with you all. Her journey with infertility that has went on for 10 years, it spanned over 10 years. And we do have a happy ending for you, but we just want to give you a heads up. It might be a little bit heavy. So Molly, I know she was going to mention that as well.
Yeah, definitely like a vulnerable topic. And so, no bad feelings if you're like on that journey and it's just too heavy to think about or talk about right now. Absolutely. But thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Miss Amanda. I'm
Absolutely.
excited.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being vulnerable to share your story. And, I know it'll be a blessing to those ladies who are in the waiting room. So I really appreciate you coming on to encourage them and share your story. So thank you so much. So for those meeting you for the first time today, could you introduce yourself, take us back to the beginning? What did your life look like when you first started your family, and how did that season evolve
Yeah.
into that road of infertility and the loss that eventually shaped, who you are today?
Sure, yeah. So if you're first meeting me for the first time, obviously you already mentioned my name's Molly. My husband's name is Jeremy, and we met in middle school. And we were not boyfriend and girlfriend in middle school. We started dating at the end of high school. And it was just, puppy love. Like we just were high school sweethearts, the whole deal. Um, we got married after college, and that was in 2014 that we got married. And we wanted kids right away. We were like, let's have a family. Let's have a huge family. In fact, like I would joke and say, like, I want 8 kids. Like that's what I would say to people. And shortly after getting married, we became Christians. We got saved. We saw the gospel presentation online from your pastor, actually, and that kind of changed how we thought about a lot of different things. Obviously, like the Holy Spirit changes you. Um but we were still young. We were 22 when we got married, and so like I had gone to college, and we were like, I'm going to work for a few years, and then whenever it is that we have our first baby, I'll stay home. I'll quit my job and I'll stay home. And I was working at the time as like a college English teacher. So it wasn't like hard labor or anything like that. But and I did enjoy it to a certain extent. Like obviously I like to read, I like to, teach people how to communicate better and things like that. It wasn't horrible, but it did feel as the months and then the years started to wear on, like I was waiting for my life to start because I wanted to be a homemaker, a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife. And I was driving to work every day and teaching. And so I definitely felt like infertility was this roadblock holding me back. And in July of 2017, so a little over 2 years, 2.5 years ish into like being married and not, conceiving, we got that first positive test. But unfortunately, we lost that baby right away. And so it was within the week. You get a positive test and then
Oh,
nothing. Um, and so I was really bitter. I was really sad. I felt like life was sort of passing me by, and I couldn't understand why I didn't like have a family, which is how I viewed it.
right.
And a few months passed, and in February of 2018, I got pregnant again, and then immediately, like the next day, miscarried. And I was despairing, I would say. I was very upset. But the day after that miscarriage, my husband was driving to work. And at the time, he commuted about an hour from our home to get to work. And he was in a very serious car accident. he was hit head on, and he was going the speed limit, but it was like 55 at the time. And the person who hit him was totally at fault, but he almost lost his life. He broke a lot of bones in his body. It was a really long recovery where he needed a lot of physical assistance from me in those months of recovery. And as much as that's like a really dark chapter, I do think that shifted my perspective a lot, and I think we can get into that more later. But it definitely shifted my thought process from thinking like, when am I going to start a family? Like, when is God going to let me have a baby? To appreciating that I already had a husband and that I already
Right.
had a family. So
Right.
um that definitely shifted my mindset. And then, over the years, after that, I definitely had a better perspective on like my infertility. I think those first 3 years were really dark, but then after that it was like I was upset, every month, when it's a no, I would be upset. And then um all told, across the years, I had 8 losses. So every time I would conceive, I would get excited, I would get hopeful, and I would get disappointed, and grieve, honestly, like, because, they're babies, right? That
Right.
I didn't get to, take home and snuggle and um, all that. But eventually, I did want to try the doctor route because I was thinking like, this isn't normal, right? Something is wrong. And so I had gone to the doctor, just a standard like OB type doctor, and they were pretty much just like, get on birth control to regulate your cycles. And that was like all the assistance that they had. And I was kind of like, well, that seems like the opposite of what I want to do.
Right.
And so I didn't really go and pursue any more medical treatment for a long time. But I reached a certain point where I was like, I really want this to happen in my life. And so I really need to like take it seriously if I'm gonna have it. Um and at that point I had never prayed for anything more. Like, it was like I had prayed and prayed and fasted and prayed, like, not, we're not supposed to talk about fasting, but I mean, it was like we'd done everything in the spiritual department we could,
Right.
as far as we were concerned. So we went back to like a more holistic doctor and uh, did a bunch of blood work, things like that. And I did find out from that I have celiac disease, which, if the viewer isn't familiar, it's like an autoimmune condition that makes your body really seriously react to consuming anything with gluten in it. So like bread products, things like that. And that can impact fertility. And
Right.
so I went on a totally wheat-free, gluten-free diet. And obviously I did see an improvement in my health at that point, but it still didn't fix whatever was wrong. And in uh, 2023, I was still working with this, holistic doctor, and she pretty much said to me like, you need to lower your expectations of having children naturally, unless you're willing to escalate and go and do more medical stuff, or, you just need to temper your expectations. And that was really hard to hear. And we prayed about it a lot, my husband and I. And we decided that like it can't really hurt to at least hear what the like more medical side of like things has to say. So we went and worked with what's called a reproductive endocrinologist. And they ran a bunch of tests, and they did discover some things that were wrong for me hormonally. And so we felt comfortable like with fixing those things that were wrong with me hormonally. So I got on medication. There was nothing wrong with my husband, and it was me. And so, I worked with them for about a year. And it was really intensive because they were like drawing blood levels for me multiple times a month to make sure that things were looking good, that things were normal, and doing other tests as well. And that whole year that we worked with them, from June of 2023 to June of 2024, I never got pregnant. So even though I had gotten pregnant many times before, it never happened when we were working with that endocrinologist. And so um, in June of 2024, that clinic was like, there's no point in you continuing to work with us if you're not willing to start doing other kinds of treatments like IVF. And that was just totally out of the
Right.
question for
Right.
us. Um, you know, not even just like, because I know a lot of people wouldn't do that because of financial reasons or whatever, but it was moral reasons too. We felt like it was wrong,
Right.
like it's playing
Right.
God. And
Hmm.
so we weren't willing to pursue that. And so we just pretty much threw in the towel and we're like, let's look into adoption, you know? And I was just kind of like, I'm done trying to focus on making my body, fertile. Like I just need to focus on my health entirely and not try to like, avoid this, avoid that. I just need to like crank it, like get healthy. I want to be a healthy mom and we're going to adopt is like how I felt about it at that time. Um, and over the course of from June 2024 to November, I lost a significant amount of weight and I ended up just getting pregnant randomly.
Wow.
And it was really exciting. It felt different. Like it felt like, okay, like it had been multiple years at that point since I'd had any pregnancies. And so I was like, okay, here we go. Unfortunately, I did also lose that pregnancy.
Mm.
And you'd think that I would be super devastated at that point, but I actually didn't. I felt like something was different and I felt like I would get pregnant again. Like, I'm like, this was not my last chance. Like, I just had this feeling like this isn't my last chance and I will have a baby one day. And that had always been like, I don't know. Like, I know that there's a lot of stories in scripture of infertile women who go on after years, decades even to have babies, but it was hard to have faith that that would be me. And I was right though that I would get pregnant again, and I did just a month later. And
Wow.
um, that baby was totally healthy, and I carried her to term, and she is 6 months old today, baby Violet
Oh.
Lily.
Aw, happy 6 months, baby.
Thanks for she's with her daddy right now.
So
Otherwise, I'd
sweet.
show
Yeah.
her off. But
Yeah.
so
Oh.
that was, my story in a nutshell. Everything that we went through to get our little Violet.
Right. Wow. You guys have been through so much. And, you know, I'm so thankful that you were able to stay strong during that time, even though you felt, very devastated at times and very, you know, just grieving so much. I'm glad that you were able to just keep at it and just keep doing what you could do, what you felt was in the realm of what you could do spiritually, morally and that kind of thing. But also just trying to get the help where the help was available. And like you said, you learned a few things, what you could do hormonally, and you worked on those, and then just working on your health. So, that's really good. It takes a lot of faith to do that and a lot of hard work. I know what it's like to lose weight.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's really hard. And for you to lose a significant amount of weight in there during that time, I applaud you for that too, because that takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. Yeah, and
yeah,
I know no shade on people who go the like Ozempic route or whatever, but it was just hard work, exercise, eating right for me. Just not. I was nervous about the way that that would impact my health later on, and so I was like, no, I know that that exists, and like
right,
I'm glad that it helps some people, but it was I was still it was hard to shake that mindset of like, well, but what if I were to randomly get pregnant? Like I wasn't willing to do anything that was like possibly not okay during pregnancy even after I had
right,
like given up, and I'm like we're going to adopt. It was so hard to close that door. Like I couldn't be like
right,
it's not going to happen for us, so who cares? So
right.
yeah.
I'm so glad you were able to keep the faith and just keep moving.
Yeah.
So, infertility is often a silent grief. Can you share what those years of waiting and the pain of recurrent miscarriages did to your internal landscape and your relationship with God?
Yeah, that's heavy. Obviously, I've never prayed for anything harder, right? And sometimes you pray for something little and you get it right away. It's like, yeah, there's God, like, but it's hard when you want something so much and you pray for it like daily, like you almost worry, like, am I annoying God about this? Like, it's hard to keep faith that like he answers prayer, that he's there and that he like listens, and I think obviously he did, right? And so I have that, like, now in retrospect, like those years of waiting weren't God not listening to me, but it can feel like that. Like,
Right.
why isn't it my turn? Like, why am I being made to wait? Um and I remember um you know praying like, God, if I can't have children, like if that's my lot in life, like please just remove the part of me that wants kids. Like,
Right.
just reach into me and just cut that part of me out, because the wanting and the not eventually getting, it hurts so much.
Right.
Um but that wasn't his will for me, and there's also, you wonder things like, did I do something that I'm being punished for? Right? Like, these years of, like, because this isn't a normal waiting span. Like, sometimes you see people wait a year and say, like, oh, like, we went through infertility, and not to diminish people who, have been waiting a year or something like that and feel grief about not having children yet. But you wonder, like, did I do something to deserve this? And you'd think, like, maybe it would be more clear though, like, because there's like,
Right.
where there's nothing obviously, like, we're not out robbing banks or something, like there's not like an obvious, like, here, this is the thing to fix. And so um it definitely does change you, and you can sometimes, I feel like you feel yourself in that grief getting bitter. Like, I remember feeling myself becoming bitter and being like, ooh, I don't want to be bitter. Like, I don't want that to be me. And towards the end of the wait, I realized that grief is something that can shape us into better Christians. God is a man of sorrows, and he's well acquainted with grief, and he knows what it's like to grieve. And if you can lean into the fact that, like, wanting and not getting is something that Christ did for us on this earth. Like, there's a
Right.
lot of things he forewent. Like, he didn't have a wife and kids, and
Right.
so, those are some of life's best blessings. And that I could lean into the experience, even an unpleasant experience, and know Christ better is definitely one of the ways that it changed my internal landscape.
Right. That's so beautiful. You were able to lean into that and just appreciate him even more for who he is and what he did for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how did your church or community support you, or where did you find the most comfort?
Well, I feel like my husband was there for me in ways that I can't even describe. Like, he was so sturdy. I don't think that it affected him the same way that it affected me. He felt very confident that one day we would have children and that he wasn't in a big rush for it. Like, he was so excited, and he loves our daughter so much. But he's always had this sturdiness about him where he's not like worried about the little things in life. And so he was obviously a huge support to me. But also, there have been so many people that, like, I would share what happened to us or what was happening to us at the time, and they would say, oh, I'll be praying for you. But there were even people who, after the fact, like when our daughter was born, reached out and said, like, we've been praying for you for years. Like, we're so glad to see that your prayers and our prayers have finally been answered. And so there was definitely a lot of, like, behind the scenes prayer warriors who,
Right.
like, prayed for us over the years. And I do want to thank them for that. Like, because, obviously that's a huge blessing that they were thinking of us and, like, asking, like, petitioning God for us, that we
Yes,
have our baby. So
absolutely. And on behalf of all of us, you're welcome.
yeah.
I was one of them.
Yes, 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 thank you.
You're so welcome. We love you and we're so happy for you.
Aw,
Yeah,
thank you.
so happy for you. So let me back up here for a minute.
Sure.
So many women feel forgotten by God during infertility. How did you navigate those moments when his promises felt so far away?
I wrote a lot, okay? And so I'm willing to share some of the things that I wrote because they definitely give a glimpse of some of the ways that I felt. And I think that like even if I'm not feeling that way now, they might like speak a little bit to people who are going through it now. So I wrote a lot, but and so I'll share that in a sec. But I also um threw myself into staying busy, right? Because staying busy helps us stay out of a lot of trouble. And so I worked as a nanny. I spent a lot of time with little kids because I felt like that would maybe like fill that like longing to like be a mom. And I helped, friends with kids, things like that. I learned hobbies. I did a bunch of different like crochet. I do a lot of crochet, knitting, and things like that. So that's how I stayed busy, but I'll go ahead and screen share and we can look at some um, pictures of things that I put together for our broadcast today. Can you see my
This will be
screen?
so fun. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So that is Violet. If you haven't seen her before, right at the top there. And that's her today. She's 6 months old. Um, but so we'll get into just kind of a slideshow of the different things that I wrote in those years. So this one was a poem that I wrote um, after my first miscarriage. And I was thinking a lot about how my body was sort of betraying me. Like I felt like my body wasn't a fruitful vine, but it was a desert, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so I wrote this at that time. It would have been in 2017. So we bought a stroller, drunk with hope, and for a while, Wens colored our conversation, and the stroller sat folded up in our closet. Time changed our whens to ifs, and half-formed hopes turned to rotting plots. Then, finally, we didn't speak at all. So I planted a garden, and sprouting plants felt so close to hope. Things grow, things live, I learned again. Yet my plants did not yield harvest. No fruit, no bud, just yellowing leaves, grown fat on withering stalks, and swarming midges ripped for limb from fragile limb, filling their hungry gullets with my hope. And I dreamt of maggots falling from my belly, and I dreamt of my body a desert. And so obviously those are some really dark thoughts, but I think
Right.
people forget that when you have a loss, you know, it is unseemly. Like there are things about it that you experience that like are not really shareable, right?
Right.
I don't want to say the word gross, right? Because that feels like unkind to the fact that what you're witnessing was your child. But
Right.
there is kind of a private disgust that you might feel if you have a loss, and that's completely normal. It's sad, right? Normally, when people
Right.
pass away, you bury them, but you don't get to do that with a miscarriage, right? You are sort of the burial, so it's hard in that way, and especially when you're wanting your body to grow something so miraculous as a baby, and it
Right.
just doesn't, right? It can be really hard. um
Definitely.
this was another one that I wrote about hope feeling like a curse. So we think about hope as something that is good inherently, and obviously hope is good. But hope can actually be really painful. And I don't, necessarily have to read this one if someone wants to pause it and read it. But you can feel when you're hoping for things that don't come to pass, that when the hope goes away, right, that you're sort of left with this void where the hope was, and it is very sad to have hoped. And
Right.
you can try to like say, well, I'm not going to get excited this time, right? If someone who's going through recurrent miscarriage, or even just infertility, and they just keep getting negative tests, you can try to say like, well, I'm not going to get excited. But hope is one of those funny things where it kind of creeps up, even if you say,
Right.
I'm not going to get excited.
Hmm.
And so this was just a reflection on that. Um,
Molly, do you have a way of moving me off of that where I'm
oh,
at? I
I didn't know
actually
you were
don't.
blocking it. How about that? That
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Yeah.
Okay, I can move you around. I didn't realize you were visible to the viewer. Okay, sorry about that. Um, this was a poem that I shared in 2020 on Mother's Day. And at that point, it had been um, 6 years almost. It was like 5.5 years where I had been waiting. And so about halfway, right? Not quite at the finish line there. Um, I am not a useful tree. My fruit withers and drops unripe, and unripe fruits all pith and pit, sorrow of the bitterest type. No flesh remains to love me back and to rise up and call me blessed, and nothing but the pain of hope as comfort while I clean the mess. To love a child I'll never meet, except when these feet reach heaven's shore. The thought runs through my mind replete. Some days I feel I can't take more. I am so sorry, little one, for the time you spent inside my womb, unformed and small, and yet so loved, and my body became your tomb. And, that's obviously really heavy. But I feel like sometimes getting the thoughts out, like writing them down, just helped me to grieve and let it go.
Right.
I had one miscarriage that was a little further along. I didn't know that I was pregnant at the time, because obviously my infertility was such that my cycles were very irregular. And um, the miscarriage that I had that was a little further along, I could see the baby, and
Mm.
it was very traumatic. And so I wrote this one about that baby. Um, I had a little bird. I wanted her to stay. But a wind found her wings, and so she flew away. Feathers in the garden left in her quick ascent, and nothing save her bird song to point to where she went. I made a nest for her the morning she flew on, and now it just sits empty since my little bird is gone. I hope she knew I loved her, though we never got to speak, and now I'm always longing to kiss her little beak. So, obviously, lots of heavy feelings. I found a lot of hope in nannying. I nannied two little girls for a number of years. They came to me when they were just little babies, and their mom had passed away, and I had lost a few babies at that point. And so I would watch them for their grandparents who were raising them, and it was very healing. I felt um, so full of just joy and hope, spending all day playing with them. And eventually, they grew up and they went off to school. Their nana wanted them to go to regular school, but I watched them from the time they were little babies, right after their mom had passed away, until they went off to school. So I called them my girls in this little reflection as they were moving away. And I was moving away, but they were such a sweet little girls, and that was one of the ways that I coped with waiting. Um, this is a picture of just a handful of all the supplements that the naturopath had me on.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yes, it was everything you could think of, and it wasn't enough in the end, but I just thought that was like a good picture for like we tried, okay, we tried.
Right.
And then this was the medications from the endocrinologist, like the more heavy hitting stuff. So, um, and this is a picture of one of the ways that I kept busy while I waited. One of the things I would do is I would crochet little clothes for the baby that we would one day have. So you can see there's a blue hat and a pink hat. You never know what you're
Aw.
what you're gonna have. But I spent a lot of time making clothes for her. And she is now big enough that she fits in this bigger sized rainbow cardigan, if you can believe it.
Aw, so sweet.
Yes, she's worn all the things that I made for her in those years now. Um, And then I made her a blanket as well.
Those are beautiful.
When I decided that it was a possibility that we wouldn't ever have kids, I had a lot of feelings about that, obviously. And so this might be a feeling that someone would have who is experiencing infertility, maybe not the recurrent miscarriages like what we went through, but just kind of facing the reality that you might never have kids. Um, and this is what I said. And this was this was just about when we realized we probably weren't going to have kids naturally, even though obviously my God is bigger than that. Jesus is bigger than that. We did go on to have kids, but this was when we had given up. Um, I am not afraid to die, but I am afraid to live, to grow old and frail and lonely with nothing but the walls of my home and my knickknacks for company, and the sounds of songs decades out of date curling through the air of a silent house, with no warmth but my hand crocheted blankets destined for goodwill, and my youth and ambition as familiar to my soul as a stranger passing on a train. So obviously, you might feel like your life is not amounting to anything, or that like the purpose of your life would be to have kids and that you're not able to do that. And that might be a feeling that you have. And I talked a little bit about wanting something so bad and praying that God would just remove that longing. And this was a poem that I wrote having that feeling, about that feeling. And I don't have to read them all. I feel like I'm maybe taking a bunch of time.
That's
But
okay. Which ones do you want to? Go ahead. Yeah.
I think let's see. I think I do want to just land on these last two before we get into the like good stuff. Which this one was when I had finally kind of had that change of feeling where I was like, I know that God has a plan for me, even if that's not having kids. And so I want to share this one and the next one, and then we'll talk about whatever other questions you have for me.
Okay.
So I face each disappointment, each failure of my plans as God's divine appointment and protection by his hands. Now my dreams have been deferred to another day sublime. In waiting, I will praise the word, await God's perfect time. As Christ forewent life's pleasures and cried instead for man, I'll give up ungained treasures and submit to God's great plan. For no tear-soaked prayer to Jesus, no begging from the heart can break God's will to please us and some blessing to impart. If in this human lifetime I have other plans than this, and this lack shall be a lifeline as hope betrays me with a kiss. I ever stay in action, spit out hope's bitter gall, I know God's satisfaction shall protect me from it all. And so
That
this
is so
last,
beautiful.
oh, thank you, Miss Amanda. Um, And then this one is about what I was talking about, how we can know God better through the grief that we experience. Um, in God's perfect creation, there was no death, no pain, no shame. But when sin entered the garden, it could never be the same. The grief of our Creator when all he made was good, that the man in his own image did what only free will could, to rebel against all goodness, spit in Jehovah's face, and doom all of creation except for God's own grace. For when life serves us sorrow, when we close our eyes in grief, we join in heart with Jesus, and in its depth, relief. For God's a man of sorrows, and we know him when we weep, and someday he is coming to gather us lost sheep. And if the tears still find us, Christ will wipe from off our eyes, and we'll wipe the tears from Jesus when we meet him in the skies.
That is so beautiful, Molly. You're so
Thanks.
good. Your
Oh,
writings are so nice. Yeah.
yeah. It was
Those
definitely an
definitely got
outlet.
me.
It was definitely, sorry. It's definitely an outlet for me, like because it is lonely. Like, you asked about it being
Right.
a silent grief, and it's
Right.
not easy to just bring up that in conversation with people, and
So
so
true.
I
Yeah.
did find a lot of solace in writing how I was feeling, and and how my thoughts evolved over time. So sorry for making you cry though.
No, it was absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad that you found that outlet to be able to write and just express your emotions and, just pour out your heart to the Lord and, just be closer to Him. And so I'm really glad that that helped your walk, and
Yeah.
that, like I said, just that that helped you in your grief. And yeah, you're a beautiful writer for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
thank
very
you.
good. Yeah.
English teacher, former English teacher, right?
Yeah, that's very beautiful. So, all right, where were we here on our notes here? Okay, infertility and loss can either pull a couple apart or knit them together. How did you and your husband, Jeremy, navigate the different ways you grieved, and how did you remain a team when the weight of the weight was the heaviest?
Yeah, I think it's 100% his sturdiness that definitely helped us. And honestly, I think having fun together and like not trying to sit in like, well, we can't have fun yet because we're not a family yet because we don't have kids yet. Like that can be like a mentality that holds you back. Like,
Right.
sure, we will go to the fair. Like, yes, maybe the fair is meant for people with kids, but like we're allowed to have fun, like
So
you can
true.
go out and do stuff and enjoy each other. And I mean, in retrospect, we had a lot of years alone to get to know each other, right?
True.
Like
Hmm.
we spent 10 years alone together. A lot of people
Right.
don't get that until their twilight years or at
Right.
all, right? So, definitely leaning into learning to rely on each other, and like when he's upset about it, I be strong, which was rare. um when I'm upset about it, he be strong, and then that was more often the case. We had so many beautiful years, and I obviously can't imagine what my life would look like if we had just had kids right away. Obviously probably really different. But any challenge that you face in your marriage, you can let it tear you apart. You can. But if you're a woman waiting for your little blessing, your husband is not your enemy. If he doesn't feel the same amount of loss as you, that doesn't mean that he doesn't care. Men and women are built different, and
Right.
they grieve different. They wait for things different. Um, don't let the fact that you're upset and he's not as upset, or he's more upset and you're not as upset, don't let that tear you apart. Like you're a team, and if there is a differential there, learn to like rely on each other.
That's so
So
good. That's so
thank
good.
you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment where you felt a shift from striving to surrendering regarding your desire for a child?
I definitely think that car accident totally shifted my mindset in 2018. I was like, when is it going to happen for me? And then I was like, when it happens, I'll be so happy. And I think there were two shifts. There was that shift where I like realized like roll, slow your roll. Like you need to appreciate what you have. You have a family. There are women without husbands. Like that mental shift was one. I think another was when we gave up and were like, we'll just adopt. And I know that like that can be an annoying thing to hear when you're in fertility, right? When you're in it. Because sometimes you hear so many stories like anecdotally, like, well, once we gave up, we conceived, and like people say that all the time. And I'm not saying that that's like had any play in how it ended up happening for us. But there was a shift where I was sort of like, well, we've done everything we can do humanly speaking. We've done everything we can do spiritually speaking. We've got to just throw in the towel and just like live our lives. So I definitely surrendered, I think, in a way that I thought I had already surrendered at that point. And, God was faithful. Like we ended up having a daughter even after that. So that was the moment,
Beautiful.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell us about the moment you realized this pregnancy was different. How did you balance the natural fear of another loss with the hope of a miracle?
We were nervous. I have to be honest with you. I think that there was even some like, are we really having a baby when I was in labor? To some extent. But I think the moment that it shifted for me was when we had our first ultrasound and saw her and listened to her little heartbeat. And that's another thing I can actually share because I have a video of that
Aw,
moment. So I thought that might be nice for your viewers to see.
that
It
would be
was
so fun.
obviously like a really special moment for my family. So obviously, this is the very first positive test for Violet. And you might be going, that's not a positive test. But believe me, I saw a line. Okay. And I was like, I saw a line. I was sure.
Yes,
And
yes.
I was right. So here it got darker and darker and darker. And I was like, yes, that's right. We're having a baby, hopefully. And then when I finally got that line that's like darker than the control line, I was like, woo, all right.
Yes.
Um, but the moment that it felt real was this moment here where I finally heard her heart. Are you able to hear the heartbeat?
Yes.
Oh yeah. And you could see me crying.
Oh,
that
that's
was
beautiful.
that was such a special moment.
Yeah.
And just the rest of the whole pregnancy journey and everything, obviously, like my first trimester was sort of rough. I'm sure some ladies can relate to bad morning sickness, but
Oh, yeah.
just being able to see her and be like, oh yeah, like there's our daughter, that was really special. And then there were a couple of moments during my pregnancy where we had like little scares. Like I had some bleeding in the early part of my second trimester, but it ended up being nothing. It wasn't anything to be concerned about. And so I think after that I was like, okay, like we're good. But there's a million little like, is this really happening? Is this really happening? Like disbelief a little
Oh,
bit.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yes.
Yes.
So, looking back now, how do you see God at work in the timing of your daughter's arrival?
I wish I could tell you that there was like an obvious, like, oh, it was because of this. Oh, it was because of that. Oh, once we got this settled, that's when. And I think sometimes when you're waiting for your chance for a baby, you might think like, well, surely by the time I'm 30, surely by the time this happens, surely by the time that happens. And there is no neat answer. Like, I can't say for sure. Obviously, I do think that like I'm the healthiest I've ever been. So maybe that's a part of it, right? But there's no like, surely this was the reason. And if I had just fixed that earlier, it would have happened. Or like, God made me wait 10 years because for 10 years I had done this. Like, no, like there's no neat answer like that. It just, sometimes life is like that where you want like special dates and special numbers to mean things. And it's just sometimes like, maybe God will tell me why I had to wait 10 years in heaven because I certainly don't know. Um, but obviously it it wasn't that bad where I'm sitting now. Like, and I know that that might be hard to hear because like I know, believe me, I showed you my sad poems. Like it sucks. But now that I have my daughter and she's a healthy, thriving little baby, I can hardly even remember how it felt being in it. Like it's like a moment passed. It doesn't feel I don't feel the weight of all those years anymore in the same way. So obviously God knows that like that's not going to feel like a long wait when it's over. And
Right.
so that would be what I would say is God's hand is in it because it's not that big of a deal once you're out of it. It just feels hard when you're in it.
Sure.
It's like
Yes.
running a marathon. Not that I've ever done it, although I did a half marathon once a long time ago. But
Wow.
it's like every runner will tell you like I'm not having a good time in it, but I'm really glad I did it afterwards.
Right. Totally true. Yeah.
So yeah,
Totally true. So,
yes,
in what ways did the years of loss refine your character and prepare you for motherhood in ways that you didn't expect?
yeah. I definitely feel like the Bible verse that like the barren woman will conceive. I forget what the exact wording of it is. He'll make the barren woman to be the joyful mother of children. I
Mhm.
feel like the years of waiting has made it that much sweeter. Like, I do not feel flustered with my daughter. I don't feel like tired. Like, I feel so good. Like, every day I'm like, I can't believe this isn't like a dream. Like, I am
Aw.
living the dream right now. And so I definitely think that joyful mother of children is like for sure, like absolutely correct. Like, and I'll even say, like, we don't have bad days around here. We just have challenging ones, you know, like
Right.
she's had diaper rash, she's had teething. Like, she had when she was 5 days old, she did this thing where she just screamed for
Mm.
like hours and hours and hours. And we were like, why? What's wrong? And it was like, we tried all the stuff and it was like, nothing was wrong. She was just yelling. She was new to the world. But
Right.
even in that, we were like, can you believe that she's here with us? Can you believe we have a baby, that we're parents? Like, so I definitely feel like it made me a joyful mother in ways that I probably wouldn't have been if I had just like had a baby right away as a 22-year-old. Um, and then I also feel like it has made me way more sure of God's promises. Like, he comes through, you know, like prayer works, like even if you have to wait a long time. um like, I feel like it has made me a more patient person, um and has made me definitely more, um I think, like sensitive and sweet, I don't know, sappy, than I was before, for sure.
Mhm.
So those are the ways that it changed me.
I love it. Beautiful. So, when you look at your miracle baby today, what is one thing about God that is most clearly reflected to you?
I think that the clearest thing is that he is faithful. He listens to prayer. He cares about us. He, when we're crying, he knows. Like, he looks at us as his children. Like, if you're a saved Christian, you're a child of God, and like, he doesn't want you sad. And he had pity on me, and he took away my reproach. You know, and um, like, God cares about you, and if you're in that season of life right now where you're waiting, like, and you're a child of God, like, talk to him about it. Open your heart to him. Like, he listens.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, for those women who are listening that are currently in their own waiting room, you mentioned, crying out to him and getting in touch with him. For those ladies that are grieving a loss, even in that space of infertility, what is the one truth that you want these ladies to cling to?
That God is bigger than infertility. And if he was able to orchestrate an immaculate conception, he can make you have a baby. Okay.
So true.
Um, so, um, God is bigger than your struggle. Jesus cares about you and wants you to be happy. Um, but also, and just spiritual stuff, obviously foremost, but physical stuff is also a component. And if you're in that season, don't be afraid to figure out if there's something physically or hormonally wrong with you. Like, don't be afraid of doctors. Like, you don't have to follow their instructions. If you don't like the kinds of advice they're giving you, you are the boss of your care. You can say, I don't want to
That's
do
right.
that. No, thank you.
Yep.
And getting more information is not a bad thing. Going in for blood work is not a bad thing. Doing an ultrasound is not a bad thing. There's other procedures that they do to see, like, if you're anatomically normal, you know, not a bad thing. Could be useful to find out. And so if you're in that situation where you've poured your heart out to God and you want a baby really badly, don't be afraid to go to the doctor if years have gone by and nothing has happened, or if you're having losses. Like, they have things they can do for you that aren't like just immediately IVF, you know? they can help you. Like there are medications that they can help like regulate different hormonal problems. There are autoimmune disorders that you need to get under control in order to restore fertility. Like
Right.
don't be afraid to talk to doctors. Like they're not your enemy, even if you don't agree with them, even if they're not even Christians, like even if there's nothing, like you don't like them, but they have knowledge about how the body works. They've studied it, and they might be wrong about certain things, but like they know how to look for things like markers of inflammation, thyroid disorders, like PCOS. Like they know how to look for those things, and they also know like here are some things you can do to help you conceive if you have those things going on in your body. So,
Exactly. That's such a great point that you make there. And just for our listeners that are listening, I'm the host of this podcast, but I'm also a lifestyle and health coach. I can help you with testing and hormonal testing and all of that. I can even help you see where your hormones are at. We have a great at-home app that you can use. It's called UVA. I can link information in the description about that, but reach out to me. I could be your first point of contact. There's so much that you could do lifestyle wise. Molly knows that. That
mm-hmm.
can, I mean, probably, yes, working on your hormones helped you a lot, getting that
Yes.
nailed in, but you did a lot of lifestyle changes that ultimately led to you conceiving.
Yeah.
And I think that that can also be a place where you can start, ladies. And so if you're in this place, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you, but I'm definitely going to be praying for you. And so thank you so much, Molly, for coming on. It means so
Oh,
much
yeah.
to our listeners. I know it'll be a huge blessing for those ladies that are in this place and they're in despair.
Yeah.
And it's good to be able to offer them some hope, offer them some comfort and some things that they can do to keep themselves busy. You gave
Mm-hmm.
some great ideas for that. And so thank you so much for that. And I do want to ask one more question. For
Sure. Sure.
those of us who have friends that are in this place of infertility, we want to help, but we don't want to say the wrong thing. Would you
Mm-hmm.
please tell us, the other, on the flip side, our other
Yes.
listeners who are not in infertility, what are some things that we can say or
Mm-hmm.
do to help? And what are things that we should not say?
Okay. Yeah. That's super. That should be super helpful. So I will say, right, that the best thing you can do for your friend who is struggling with infertility or recurrent loss is just open the door to let her know that she can talk about it with you. So you don't have to necessarily reassure her or anything like that. Just being like, hey, I see you're going through this. I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And she might not want to, but just saying like, you can unload the truck, you can talk to me about it. I might not be able to empathize, but I can sympathize. Like I'm an open ear. I think that's the best thing that you can do as far as do's. And like don't let your own uncomfortable feelings of like, ooh, man, she must be so unhappy, stop you from including her in things. Like sometimes people think that they're being nice by like not inviting you to a baby shower when they know that you've had losses, or like not inviting you to like kids' birthday parties and things like that because you don't have any kids yet. Even though like you love their kids, you would totally go and bring them a present. So just include her, even though it might feel a little awkward to do so. That's the kindest thing you can do. As far as things to avoid saying, um, although I do believe that like all things work together for good, sometimes we want to try to be like optimists for women who are going through grief. And that's not especially helpful, right, for most women. So saying like, well, at least it was an early loss, or, at least you can get pregnant. That's not helpful. Like trying
Okay.
to spin like a happy side to it. And if you've done that, please don't feel bad. Like I know women who've said those kinds of things to me, I know that they were just trying to make me feel better, right? And
Right.
I think it's
Yeah.
reasonable to be like, I assume that people are trying to be kind and not harmful, but those kinds of things can be like, well, I'm upset right now and I don't necessarily want it to be smoothed over. Like I'm allowed to
Exactly.
be upset. So those kinds of things. And I don't think many Christian ladies would say this, but I've definitely heard from like worldly women things like, oh yeah, you're lucky, kids are a burden, like, oh, well, you can have some of mine, things like
Oh,
that.
wow.
Obviously those things are not a good attitude. But yeah,
And
just
don't
being
say
in,
that in front of your kids either. That could hurt
right.
your
It's
kids'
so
feelings.
mean. Yeah. Um, but just don't try to make things better when things are bad, but be an open door, and if you've had a shared experience like where like there was something that you had to wait a long time for, like Miss Amanda, you've never been through necessarily that, but you've definitely like waited a long time to get married, right? And so
Yes.
what it
Mhm.
feels like to like wait on God's timing, to be
Right.
like, I don't know when or if this is going to happen for me, but I sure hope God will let it happen for me. Like, so
Oh,
what
yeah.
those feelings are
Hmm.
like. So you can draw on similar experiences, even if it's not the same.
Right. Well, that's such great advice. I really appreciate you sharing those tips for us. I always want to offer something for our ladies that, not only encouragement, but also, okay, so how can we help others that are in this place? And what are some do's and don'ts? Like, help us
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing that too. That's really helpful.
I'm glad.
Um,
Thank you for having me on, Amanda. I'm so glad.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm so happy for you and your family now. And we're definitely going to continue to keep your family in prayer. And for our listeners, if you're in this place, we're going to be praying for you too. Feel free to reach out to me. Send me an email. I'll definitely, do what I can to help out. And Molly, is there anything else that you wanted to say in wrapping up today?
Sure. Yeah. Just parting words. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me share my story. I think I feel obligated to share it because God did something really big for me and my family. And so if anything that I've said has been helpful, then I'm really glad. So thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Molly. We appreciate you. So happy to have you on. So thankful. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you next time on the Coffee and Grace podcast. Take care.